even when you lost. There's always a hope. Rise and fight.
And we're back, guys. BSL round of 24, Group B. I almost said Group A. We just saw Avi-Love beat Cross and Dewalt beat Goku earlier on. So that sets us up for a nice Dewalt versus Avi-Love best of 3 coming up here. Now, what do you expect to see in this game, Sari?
Dewalt, not only does he have strong PvT, he actually has an insane level PvZ. And Avi-Love, while he's very strong in Zerg vs Protoss, it's just hard to get to where you want to as Zerg when you're facing the wall. He's just putting on a lot of pressure. He's finding efficient trades here and there, and you really need to be on top of your game. But I know Avi-Love has seen the scouting report. I know he's seen Dewalt likes to go one gate, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like 9 or 11 hatch, right? Just basically every game to counteract that.
Yeah, well, we are going to see. I think the first map is going to be Good Night. Yeah, I remember. It's going to be Good Night, and that's a very, how do you feel about that map in the matchup?
That's a very Zerg map.
Yeah,
it's very much a Zerg map. But I gotta say, the Zerg Protoss, it really comes down to the early mid game, because if this game goes long, that's when you start feeling it as Protoss. Like, man, these expansions are crap. It's hard to defend. But if you're thinking about a game that ends in like the 10 to 13 range, then Protoss doesn't really care about map balance if they can just kill Zerg with the big timing.
Yeah. That is a good point. We'll have to see if Dewalt can get to that point. I mean, Dewalt, again, his PvZ just absolutely immaculate. But you did mention to me in the pre-stream that Avi-Love basically had to knock out Dragon out of qualifying in the ladder stage, and we all know Dragon has pretty sick PvZ.
Yeah, so Avi-Love, I mean, he's always displayed really high level in TVP. So just earlier in the last stage, I was watching Drag's stream, and he did pair up against Avi-Love, and Avi-Love won pretty comfortably. So, and this is like the last day of ladder, so everyone's really fighting it out for those points.
Yeah,
and yeah, Avi-Love displayed really high level in this matchup. So I want to see if he could take a game here. I don't think he can win the series, but he should make things competitive at least.
Yeah, and Dewalt again, if there has been one matchup, which is funny because Dewalt PvZ is incredibly strong, right? But if it's not his best matchup overall, right? But historically, it has been the matchup that has gotten him eliminated early on in the tournament. You know, remember BSL? That's what it was, right? BSL season 12.
Against Jaeyoon.
In a group with Jaeyoon and Gornich, and he lost to both of them.
Yeah, that is true. I think that time around it was best of 1 all the way through though.
Yeah.
So a little bit different scenario here. And here we have the map stats. Actually, not terrible, but still gonna be a tough map for Dewalt. Let's see what he can do. It looks like we're ready to jump in.
Let's get into it. All right, in the top left, as the red zerg, it is EverQuest user, aka Avi-Love.
And in the bottom right, we have the blue Protoss, Dewalt, and we have cross map. So if Dewalt is gonna go into his 1 gate, Avi-Love is gonna have that extra distance to give himself time.
Yeah, and how likely is it that we're gonna see Dewalt go 1 gate here? Do you ever see him go for a Forge expand?
I've seen, watching his stream, I know he mentioned sometimes certain spawns on certain maps don't give him that comfort to go 1 gate. Like if it's a 3 gap wall, it's not ideal sometimes. You can still do it, of course, but it's not ideal. And 4-player map, there's a 33% chance you are cross. That's sometimes enough. And looks like, nope, we're actually just gonna go for 1 gate with the pylon in the main. A little bit
yeah, what do you think about this? Because like,
I'm trying to think what scenarios does this backfire, right?
Yeah.
And if you're up against 9 pull speed, maybe
like a really... 4 pull actually. This is like anti 4 pull, right?
But if you get the shield battery, can you actually make the shield battery on the low ground? Because against a 4 pull with 1 gate, you do want to go shield battery right away, and it actually makes it very easy defense. And I think you have enough room for it there. So very interesting panel place. And we do, as expected, have an 11 hatch. Avi-Love expecting to face 1 gate, so 11 hatch is the best play here. You get the faster pull timing, and you, unfortunately for him, you are cross as well, and everything's looking good here for Avi-Love in the early game.
Yeah, Avi-Love is going to be really happy with how this early game is playing out for him. The Waltz probe is going to waltz in here. He is going to see that there's a hatchery. Second pylon being placed, of course, very standard opening from both players. We're waiting to see how quickly Dewalt is going to get that Nexus, but I'm assuming any time now he will plop it down, probably around 18. But, Sari, talk to me about Avi-Love's EVP. What is he like going for from this situation? Do you think he's going to go for a quick lair, or he's going to go for the 973?
Well, the quick lair is actually very popular here in the current meta, just because Protoss is only gonna make the 1 zealot, right? And if you go, he's actually going far net, so this is interesting. But yeah, Avi-Love, had he taken a close third, I would have expected him to just go 5 hatch, no gas. That's something he really likes, to get that drone count up and then mass Hydra. Yeah. But we're actually seeing a far net here, so this is gonna be more defensive here. But against 1 gate, far net can be tricky.
Yeah, actually, this is kind of reminding me, well, I suppose we should take a look at the Zealot and whether or not it's going to kill any drones here. So far, the micro is on point for both
good drone
players,
drill.
That's a really nice drill from Avi-Love, and he's not going to lose anything to that Zealot. That was just beautifully defended by him. But yeah, I mean, I remember a couple of seasons ago when Avi-Love played Oya in like a best of 5. Avi-Love just really liked this far third into really quick hive and just ultra ling. Actually, he likes going into ultralists. Yeah,
going even further back, he played GT1 in the round of 8, and he actually only went for Farnet if it was a map where you could do it, because obviously you can't do it in 2-player maps. But yeah, Dewalt, of course, only made the 1 zealot. If it's crossed, you can't really do anything with the 2nd zealot, so Protoss just go into faster Nexus, Forge, and Cannon. Yeah, and they transition into a quicker tech build. Well, so far, Dewalt hasn't scouted the far net, I don't think. I think he has just kind of pressured with the Zealot. Maybe he has an idea that this is going on. But, you know, if you're in Dewalt's shoes here,
your first zealot kind of didn't really do that much damage. You still haven't confirmed where the third base is, and that's actually a really fast Evo chamber. And yeah, I mean, talk to us about this.
Okay, this is the most annoying style to face as Protoss, because the Lings, they're gonna have carapace maybe like 10 seconds after you have weapons, and then Lings with equal upgrades actually do phenomenally well against Zealot straight up.
Yeah.
And later this will transition probably into a fast hive.
Yeah.
So you can time your upgrades and also have crack. And then Protoss is gonna be not in a great scenario if they're even on upgrades or even behind against Hive Zerg. And the fact that he took a Farnet makes it a lot easier to take a fourth base. Like, one of the weaknesses with this style is you're just stuck making sunkins on 3 base. But I would love going for that fast +1. I was wondering why he actually mined more gas than speed and then took, but now it makes perfect sense. And unfortunately for him, he's actually going to lose this Overlord, which really hurts. Not able to get into the main to see what this actually is. And the wall actually somehow, he knows it's not lair.
Yeah, and he's going straight Templar Archive, so this looks like a DT rush, but also getting the +1 weapons. And how's this gonna, I mean, as Protoss, like, when you know that the Zerg's going for, because this is something I've struggled with myself when I off-race, but when Zerg goes for this heavy carapace style and, like, the Zerglings are just insanely strong, what do you do? Like, how do you counter that? Well,
one thing you do is you probably try to think about what Zerg is not doing when they're getting the fast +1. One, they're not taking up to lair really quickly. So stuff like DTs, drops, Sares are all going to be very annoying to deal with for Zerg. Like, they don't have tech. They're really delaying their tech to get all these upgrades. And we actually have a surround here. Is this actually enough links to kill all these Zealots? Looks like no, but he does get the Dragoon. Zealot's only not even damaged. There's going to be a timing here. Avi-Love won't have +1 at the same time as the wall, just like maybe a 10-second gap. But we actually have Avi-Love already with a 6 hatch. So this is very strong economically. He needs to spot the Zealots, see where they move, and then buffer with the links. These Zealots will have a window where they do have that upgrade advantage.
Yeah, the SimCity, though, is so nice from Avi-Love at both bases. But, okay, can these Zealots get on top of the sun? Really sick pull there from Avi-Love. He's going to defend this really well. And actually, even if the drones go down, doesn't really matter because, like you mentioned, Sari, he does have 6 hatches, well, 5 hatches and the 6th underway, actually, before he even goes into lair. So, just super, super, super economic opening. And I actually think Dewalt kind of missed an opportunity here without the Stargate opening, because really one way you can kind of pressure a Zerg that's, you know, just massing Lings is to get a decent amount of Corsairs, kill a lot of Overlords, and then follow it up with some kind of shuttle drop and maybe kill the bottom left expansion. But unfortunately for him, going straight for that Templar Archives, I don't think really does him any good.
Yeah, the threat for Zerg here, you're really worried about any kind of DT drops, any kind of storm drops.
Yeah.
Because there's not even a Spire here. This is straight Queen's Nest into Hive. The follow-up for Protoss against this kind of Zerg sometimes is actually a lot of Dragoons, and you snipe the front hatches. You don't even go Archives, you just go straight Dragoon. But that also is very weak against Mass Link. You actually see a Dark Archon here. Maybe he's expecting a Mutalist switch because he doesn't have any Corsairs. And on top of this, Dewalt's actually taking the mineral only here. When Avi-Love has no map presence, he really should be trying to take that third gas base at maybe 6 or 3 o'clock, because the mineral only is not really going to help him a lot, because you're going to make more Zealots. But again, these Lings are going to be a lot stronger than normal Lings.
Yeah, I mean, especially with these insane upgrades. But, you know, this is going so well for Avi-Love, and he's going straight into Hive 9 minutes in. 9 minutes in, Sari. Hive, he's going to get cracked. He's got that double Evo chamber rolling from really early on. I mean, Dewalt is Dewalt, but even him, like, I'm sure he's going to struggle with this. He's going to try and double expand here. But Zerg has so much stuff already.
double expand is definitely a play. You do need that third gas because once these links have cracked, like Zealots are just gonna melt, and you need splash. You need high Templars, Archons. Reavers are actually not terrible here. He's actually getting Dragoon range. Looks like Avi-Love is gonna make a minimal amount of lurkers, and look at all these macro hatches going down. I'm worried only if Avi-Love goes ultras, because ultras, actually in this scenario, I don't even think ultras are bad.
Yeah.
Defilers are just so much better, right? You get Plague, and the links become that much stronger.
Oh, okay, he's getting a third Evo chamber, so he's gonna start getting some Hydralisk upgrades as well, getting lurkers, just making sure he's not gonna get busted. Yeah, so far we haven't seen an Ultra Cavern just yet, but we haven't seen a Defiler Mound either. So let's see if Dewalt can maybe put on some kind. I think the problem for Protoss in this situation is that there is no timing. So it looks like Dewalt is gonna just have to play a long macro game, but this is like this is the Zerg can't really get to this point any faster. I mean, basically, Avi-Love survived the entirety of the early game on just Ling tech.
Yep, Ling and a couple Sunks didn't even have to make spores, and he's going up to something like 10, 11 hatches. And these links are going to be extremely beefy. I'm looking at the upgrades. I'm waiting for that +1 weapons to finish, because pretty soon he's going to have crack, if not already. I think he might already even have crack. Yeah. Dewalt going to put on some pressure with some Dragoons, maybe pick off those 2 front hatcheries. But at this point, when Avi-Love is going up to 11 hatcheries, it's not really that big of a deal anymore. On top of this, Dewalt always has to be exactly concerned with counterattacks.
I think this game is... it's just going to be really hard for Dewalt to win this area. I just can't see how Protoss can grind back from this type of situation, because with this upgrade advantage as well, I mean, these Zerglings are insanely strong, and Avi-Love has like 50 trillion hatcheries. He can just keep making lings and just moving around the map. And I think Dewalt just isn't used to playing against this style. Look at how many hatcheries Avi-Love is making, and I'm sure if we could have a gander, take a gander at like the drone count. I know we can't tell really how much he has, but this looks like 60 drones at least, maybe even 70. So he can afford so many hatcheries.
Yeah, and look at these low value storms here. Low value Maelstrom, not really effective when you're facing lings. And still no Defiler Mound. That's the only thing I would say that's missing. He's actually going to go into Hydras as well, Hydra Ling. If he had Plague, Hydra Ling is like extremely cost efficient here. But just Lings alone, like Dewalt is not really having any effective fights here. These are a minimal amount of units here for Avi. Really has to be concerned about getting flanked if he goes any farther across the map here.
Yeah, I will mention this though. Avi-Love isn't really doing anything. I mean, he's kind of like running Lings around, but behind it, I suppose he is building up a gas bank. And we'll have to see what he's going to use that for, because we still don't see any Defilers out, any Lurkers out, any Ultralisks out. He does have his Spire, of course. His upgrade's not quite at +2 just yet, didn't seem like. And, oh, he does have +2, sorry. But, yeah, I mean, Dewalt is going to be able to take this top right expansion, and he's defending well so far.
Yeah, hasn't taken any damage to the expansions, hasn't lost. Okay, this is going to be a big fight here in the middle map. A lot of High Templars have been getting sniped here. Nice storm there. Nope, manages only to clip the Lings. These Dragoons are extremely low in terms of effectiveness. And here we have another move at the 4th base. This is hard as Protoss. You need to be concerned with these counterattacks. Basically, constantly. Can't ever attack, really. Because if you attack one location, you know Zerg is going to go to your most, the farthest space from your natural, basically.
Yeah, I mean, in this situation, Zerg really, all they have to do is box a bunch of larvae, press Z, press H, and then rally units, you know, up and down the map, whereas Protoss has to respawn everywhere. Up until at least Protoss can get a couple of Reavers or something at a couple of these key locations to really bog them down. That was a sick Maelstrom, but again, it's just Lings. I mean, that's like 8 Lings. That's actually like 4 supply getting Maelstrom there, so it looks nice, but it's also kind of not that that big of a deal. And look at how many links are just coming across the map, and Protoss is just starting to crumble.
Yeah, Dewalt having a really tough time getting established here. It's really hard though, because gas-wise, he only recently established that third gas, and all these Dragoons really eat into that. You want Archons, you want Reavers, but it's hard to get all that done. And now the pressure is basically never gonna let up.
Yeah, I mean, again, Zerg is just doing this with basically only links, couple Hydras sprinkled in as well. You can see Avi-Love is actually banking like 3k gas. He has, again, just the sick economy behind this. And just rallying units, you know, sometimes sending a couple of units to this 3 o'clock, sometimes going to the bottom right, really picking Dewalt apart. And Dewalt has to use these like high gas tech units to survive. The Maelstroms, the Templar, doesn't really have a composition that can kind of just, you know, destroy the chaff that is the Zerglings. And you really need to get kind of Reavers at some point here, I think, to kind of anchor a position down, or maybe get a couple of DTs on a ramp. Something. He needs just something to anchor his position.
Okay, so Avi-Love was always gonna go for these ultras, and he's gonna max out at some point. Once he decides to switch, you're just gonna see his supply go up massively, and Dewalt doesn't really have answers for ultralists, right? He doesn't have Reavers. His Archon count is non-existent.
Yeah,
and he's just getting picked apart here. One thing in his favor, of course, is that he has top right, and Avi-Love has no sense that that's there. This is a lot of gas that he's mining that he shouldn't be. We actually have a move into Avi-Love's recently established fifth base.
Yeah, and I mean, Dewalt needs to get something going for him. If he kills this hatchery, at least it's going to limit Zerg to the 4 bases only.
Another 9 Maelstrom. Needs to storm the links though. If you don't storm them, the Maelstrom actually doesn't do it. But he doesn't have any, and he just doesn't have any gas either. And he doesn't really accomplish anything with that push. Loses all his Dragoons. Avi-Love is actually almost mined out. This is how many drones he had in the early game. His natural is already basically mined out. But look, he's spending his gas, and he's about to reach max, and while struggling to get to 150 supply. And this is a problem here. Avi-Love is already at 3-2, maybe he has 3-2-2, and he's gonna have this one big attack with just a bunch of ultralists, and I don't see how Dewalt can hold here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Dewalt has any recourse here against the supply from Zerg, and the Zerglings are just being so efficient. Protoss just struggling really to get into. I mean, you know, we were talking about how this is a bad map for Protoss, and then you mentioned, well, really, I mean, Protoss on any map, they just need to get to that composition. It's a bit like TVP is these days, where, sure, Protoss can take the whole map, but once Terran has a nice composition, they can kill as many units as you send at them. And Dewalt really just hasn't gone up to, I don't think he passed like 140 supply or something. He's been kind of at this 130 supply for the entirety of this game, and just never really got a composition together that could deal with all these lings, really.
Yeah, now Avi-Love has hit the switch, and I think he was just waiting for that 3 base, because now he's going to be able to produce just non-stop ultras. And what does Dewalt actually have to deal with this? Not much. We see 1 Archon, and all the High Templars being morphed, but it's already too late. Avi-Love's already here. It's going to break down this mineral only. Not a high priority base, but the problem is Dewalt just doesn't have any units, and there's the GG.
Yeah, GG being called from Dewalt. Kind of surprised. Avi-Love taking such a convincing win in this game number 1 between the two. And I've got to go back to Dewalt's decision to skip the Stargate there. What do you think he was thinking?
I think maybe he thought Avi-Love would go into lairless 5-hatch and Hydras, which is something Avi-Love, of course, does a lot. Or at least used to when he played more frequently. And yeah, because Avi-Love skipped that and just went straight into carry base, it actually really backfired for Dewalt, because what you want to do against that is actually go not a ton of coursers, even just some coursers. You force out spores, you force anti-air from a Zerg who doesn't have a Spire, doesn't have lair, doesn't even have a Hydra then basically. And then fast drops are really annoying against that style. That 4th base Avi-Love took, really
Yeah.
hard to take if you don't have Overlord speed. If you don't have anti-air to deal with the Corsairs, just one DT shuts that down. And then, of course, without a Spire, how do you deal with storm drops? It's just really hard to execute. Had Dewalt made that and scouted everything, we're looking at a completely different game. But how the game went, it just went perfectly for Avi-Love. Even without Defiler, I thought maybe he would need Defiler just to get more value, but wasn't it ever even needed.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you basically only make Zerglings for the first 10 minutes and then you end up 4 bases with like 10 hatcheries, I think, you know, it's just a disaster situation for Protoss. But of course, I mean, that's the type of style that you don't really play on ladder if you're Dewalt, or, you know, Dewalt, we know he plays with high-level Koreans a lot, and he plays with like Siki a lot, and plays with just all these really good kind of meta Zergs. But I guarantee you, none of them play like this. So Avi-Love whipping out kind of his own style, which we know that's kind of how he plays. But when you have no practice against it, especially as Protoss, it's extremely tricky.
Yeah, and I mean, Ultralists, you never see them in this matchup, but you only never see them because Zerg is never on good upgrades by the time they can make them. They're usually behind Protoss on Carapace, and we actually saw like the latest. This wasn't even fast ultras. This was just fast upgrades and then ultras, and the Lings were just cost efficient. And the fact that Dewalt basically could never move out, right? He always had to worry about those counterattacks with Lings. He couldn't move out. He only moved out towards the end of the game, and his army was what, like 8 Dragoons, some Zealots, and a High Templar with a Dark Archon to support. Not the critical mass you're worried about as Zerg.
Well, it is going to be Dewalt's map pick here. He is going to have to bounce back, or else he, you know, Avi-Love is going to make it out of this group in first place. Dewalt must win this game. And looking at that map pool, what are you looking at, Sari?
I mean, you want third gas as a Protoss. Third mineral onlys are pretty bad, pretty crappy.
Yeah.
And you want a map where you can be aggressive as Protoss, not have to worry about a ton of paths Zergs can use. Ascension is actually pretty good despite that, because you always have a gas base no matter where you expand. So you can just build up this huge gas bank on good night. Not very feasible. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ascension.
Yeah, I think Ascension is kind of a standout map as well, and being a 3-player map, that style from Avi-Love is a bit harder to pull off. But I mean, at the same time, I think it's so obvious that I wouldn't be surprised if Avi-Love would ban Ascension. But yeah, we're gonna wait to see. Game number 2 on the way soon. Yeah, Dewalt has been in this situation before, and it's actually going to be Butter, so that makes total sense. Again, you were mentioning, Sari, that on 2-player maps, not quite feasible to go for the style Avi-Love went for. So I think the game is ready. We are going to get into it. Game number 2, Avi-Love leads the series 1-0.
All right. So in the top right spawn, we have Dewalt.
And in the bottom right, we have Avi-Love.
And I think this is actually going to be a tough map for Avi, because I know Avi's a ladder warrior. He's not someone who practices a ton with other people. And the only way for you to play this map is to practice with another friend or someone who's also preparing for BSL, because you're never going to play this map otherwise. So this is tough. On top of that, of course, again, can't go far nat. It's only a 2-player map. There are no other naturals. And Avi-Love's experience on this map is going to be very limited. So we'll see what he can do.
It's definitely a good pick from Dewalt. But let me ask you this. Have you seen a lot of PvZs on this map?
Yes.
And
just watching...
Yeah, the pros.
Just watching people stream and practice this. I actually like this map. Aesthetically, there's something about 2-player maps where just it isn't cross, like you spawn on the same side.
Yeah.
Not very common, and it's kind of hard to balance, but I think this map has done a good job of it. Yeah. And I gotta say, one thing I'm worried about is this map has a kind of benzene feel in the mid game, because Zerg has all these high grounds they can abuse, and if you go another path, they just counter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point actually. This might be a decent map for exactly that type of play. Dewalt surprisingly not going for the one gate, instead going for the forge here. You think he was looking to maybe cannon rush?
Potentially,
No. Yeah.
potentially, but I mostly think he just wants to get that early scout right away against Avilov. Like this game, he's gonna want to scout Avilov, everything he's doing, not gonna want to be surprised by anything funky like he was in game 1. And I thought that was gonna be 6 lings, but we see a drone pop out already, so it's probably only gonna be only 2 lings. And Avilov took the hatch at his 3rd.
Yeah, Avi-Love playing very standard here, and Dewalt as well. Had to get that forge, but hopefully, I think he managed to put down the Nexus before the cannon.
Waiting for Avi's gas. Okay, so it's going to be 3 hatch, then gas, so slightly later gas timing. Usually against forge, you go maybe like a 235, 237 gas, so you get your lair timing faster and you can deal with the Corsairs a little bit better. But Avi-Love going for the 3 hatch then gas. It could be a variety of things.
Yeah.
Not necessary to always get that gas at the same time.
And Dewalt, obviously with the forge build, I'm guessing he is gonna try and go for a really fast tech, getting the gas as well. Core will be plopped down as soon as that gateway finishes. And you know, you mentioned that Avi-Love generally tends to either he goes for these far hatchery builds or whatever, the far nat, or goes for 5 hatch before lair. But this time around with that early gas, is that not surprising? Because I feel like unless he goes for 973, but he only has 2 lings here, so he can't actually reliably kill this probe. So,
This is one benefit of taking the 3rd hatch at the 3rd base. But Dewalt knows something's up. He's gonna go check for that because it's either the lair at that 3rd base or it's actually the hydrogen, but he actually doesn't know where it is yet.
Yeah, I mean, not. I'm kind of surprised that Dewalt is going to this base instead of bottom left. I'm not quite sure where Zerg usually expands, but I would assume it would be towards, like, kind of
away
along
from the
yeah, exactly, to the southern side. But he will see this Hydralisk den. One Zealot also pushing across the map. I think Avi-Love knows that it's coming, but that's going to be annoying as well because that's going to force a couple of lings before the Hydralisk production begins. So definitely will put some pressure on the Zerg here.
Yep, but Avi-Love is prepared here, and we do have a Stargate Forge made at the back right away. Not even gonna worry about that one at the front getting +1 or anything. There's that 1 Zealot, 1 probe combo. I have to be careful. You can get 2-shotted. 1 drone goes down. It's like, oh, it looks like a 2nd drone goes down. That's a lot of damage already. Even
wait,
one of the
what?
getting picked off.
That Zealot has 5 kills, Sari. So 2 drones, 3 lings. That is a massive amount of damage, especially when you're going for a 973.
Yeah, everything's gonna be slowed down here for Avi-Love, and Dewalt's actually gonna go into Corsairs. This one Overlord at the front was a tell that was gonna be 3 hatch Hydra, but because Avi-Love got scouted, I'm not worried about that. Have +1 started at the back. I'm a little bit surprised. Like, this is a lot of drones for 973. It looks like he's switching out of it, so this makes sense. This makes perfect sense.
Well, I think the Overlord actually spotted the forge being built next to the Stargate, and I think Avi-Love just kind of knows. I think he's playing the psychological game beautifully here, and Dewalt being kind of the favorite, I think, is playing maybe overly reactionary. You know, you almost want to kind of force your opponent to make you actually defend rather than defend beforehand, because otherwise when your opponent backs off, you're suddenly kind of stuck in limbo here. So Avi-Love playing this early game beautifully. That being said, he is rallying Hydralisks finally, but does lose 2 Overlords so far, and more drones getting harassed here.
Yeah, still 1 Zealot. Dewalt hit that, perfectly waited for units to show up at his front before revealing it. And you know what's annoying? That 1 Dragoon actually allowed Dewalt to kill 2 Overlords, because if you chase the Overlord with your Corsair, then you can't actually get both because Hydras get to the front. So he's already gotten 2 Overlords, and that's really slowing down Avi-Love's build here.
Yeah, I mean, Avi-Love is hurting deeply from this early game. More overlords going down the lair, nowhere near finish. These hydras again. I mean, you just can't go hydras this late after, you know, after your kind of. It was like an abandoned 973. Like I understand that he still wants to kill a couple of these gates here, but the Corsairs, relatively speaking, are out. So you have to have your hydras defending. So either you commit early and kill the wall before the Corsair threat is there, or you just kind of make hydras to defend. I think this was a bit of an oversight here from Avi-Love, and he doesn't really kill anything. Doesn't kill the gate, doesn't kill the forge, and now Dewalt has double forge to work with, which is amazing for him.
Yeah, double forge going, spinning both. There's no overload at this third, right? Corsair might actually see this. DT could go there right away. Okay, overload just pops just in time there for Avi-Love. Avi-Love being forced into sunkens here. This, on top of losing all those overlords, losing drones to make creeps is also pretty painful here.
Yeah.
And of course, Dewalt still has one Corsair, so he can scout basically non-stop. He's gonna look for a spire timing. It looks like this DT actually went the other way. Might actually get a couple swipes. It's 1, 2 drones, maybe a third. It's like 2 drones went down there.
So many drones have gone down in this early game, and the spire is on the way. Avi-Love as well, I think, getting up to 6 hatcheries slowly but surely. Avi-Love actually still in a decent position, all things considered, because I think the early game was actually quite disastrous for him. But Dewalt kind of had to, like, I think maybe overmade cannons. Like he just has so many cannons and had to make the like double forge really early on. So probably not as smooth of a start for the Protoss player. And that's allowing Avi-Love to kind of get into a nice supply range.
Right, and we have Avi-Love actually making these sunkens, which is a pretty big tell to me that he's going to go into Mutalist. He also has this gas banked up. And Dewalt did scout, of course, the spire timing, so I saw he was making more Corsairs.
Yeah, more Corsairs being made here. I think he also kind of thinks something might be up with just how defensively Zerg is playing. But not choosing to get a third base just yet, or not choosing to increase his gate count just yet either. Does have a couple of zealots running around, making sure Zerg does not have kind of a really fast fourth base. And cannons being warped in all over the place. You can see Dewalt really is playing extremely defensive, right? Like he just doesn't want to die. He wants to get later into the game. But at the same time, it is definitely delaying his build. Oh, that's a lot of skill.
Yep, and I mean, Dewalt, the thing with the Spire is, Protoss sees it, they have to make these Corsairs, right? Because there could always be a Mutaswitch. So just the Spire alone makes it worth it for Zerg. And then going into Mutalist when you know Protoss is going to have delayed +1 attack is also very good. And it looks like we have a big timing here. Zealot manages, doesn't see the Mutalist. It's only 8, it's not 11. But the Mutalist will allow the Scourge to connect on some of these Corsairs. Looks like this 1 DT, can it actually slow down the 4th? Looks like Avi-Love, no!
Oh my god, that DT actually gets away, and Avi-Love loses track of his Mutalists. They take quite a lot of damage from the Corsairs, and like you mentioned, it's only 8 Mutas, so I don't think they're gonna efficiently get rid of the 2 cannons, even if the Scourge can kind of effectively ward off the Corsairs. They are gonna turn around, try and maybe snipe some Templar, or at least attack some of these units, but this DT is doing so much damage. Actually snipe the drone as well, so this expansion is delayed. Gonna have to wait for another drone to make its way all the way west, put down another hatchery. Meanwhile, Dewalt, actually his gate count, I think he's finally increased it, has a couple of units. Yeah, that's 7 gate or 8 gate almost. Yeah, 8 gate, 9 gate for him.
He also has the Robo done, which is good because Avi-Love already has Lurkers, and these Mutalists haven't been able to do much, but they're looking to get High Templars here, and looks like the Corsairs aren't here, but luckily for Dewalt, the High Templars were all the way at the back. This is 5 Corsairs. Don't think they have +1.
Yeah, well, doesn't really matter either though, because just supported by these goons and the Templar as well. I think it's going to be very hard for these Corsairs to not to be killed, basically. But looking at the supply, though, Zerg is seeming all right. I mean, you wouldn't expect the Zerg to be this close, given just how good of an early game Protoss had, right? Like Avi-Love kind of struggled in the early game, lost so many drones, lost so many overlords, yet somehow is even on supply. So that's actually kind of surprising to me.
I'm a little bit worried though how Avilov is positioning his units. One thing, he's gonna have an upgrade disadvantage just because of the double forts, but the other thing is you kind of want your Hydra Lurker to all be together and force Protoss to engage at a certain spot. You don't want Protoss to bounce between bases, and Avilov might be a little bit spread here. It's like the Mutalists trying to get more Template, but again, the number of Mutalists here is just too small.
Ooh, nice connections there on top of the Corsairs. Half of them do go down, but I feel like they've already... I don't know, Sari. I feel like the wall's kind of falling apart here. Like, look at his supply. It's going down. He's not really doing much on the map, and Zerg has like a bank. Zerg's taking a 4th base. This is looking kind of uncharacteristic for Dewalt. I think he's kind of just not playing as cleanly as we're used to seeing.
This is, I think, Avilov's lack of experience on the map somewhat, because he should be really forward with these Hydra Lurker and abusing the high grounds, not defensive like he is now. But Dewalt does take a 3rd base. One Hydra actually annoying the gas there, but not able to do much. We have 2-1 versus only 1-0. This 4th still not saturated. I still feel like the wall has the timing here because Avi-Love is not in a great position defensively. This is not a map where you want to sit back near your hatcheries as Zerg. And he's found an opening here, and now it's going to be very awkward for Avi-Love to actually engage this.
Yeah, I mean...
It's like just a straight counter from Avi-Love, not even worried about the defense there.
Yeah, Avi-Love is just going to go for the kill move here. And that's actually good. Oh my god, the wall still hasn't killed this hatchery. Lurkers just killed a bunch of goons somehow. And, you know, Dewalt kind of runs with his units in a line. These Hydras might get... Oh my god, the Templar might go down through the storm. Doesn't hit too many Hydras, but these Hydras are already in the natural of Dewalt, killing so many probes, killing a couple of goons as well. For sure, the Hydras are going to get cleaned up, but not before they do a lot of economic damage, and also trading quite well against the Zealot goons. There's just no storm in sight. This was a good counterattack, I feel like, from Avi-Love, but at the same time, I think Avi-Love might lose the 4th base. It's all down to whether or not this hatchery goes down. It looks like it's going to die.
Looks like the wall is targeting. Oh, very close, but he does manage to take it down. That being said, I think it's actually worse for Protoss because he did lose so many probes at this natural. He didn't lose the Nexus, which is nice, but he's maybe down to like 30 probes here. And Avi-Love still has that healthy drone count. He didn't have a lot of drones at this 4th base. I still think like Avi-Love should be more aggressive with his unit placement. All these lurkers should be on the high ground that leads out of Dewalt's natural here. Really pin Dewalt back.
Yeah,
but he is switching back into Mutalists. He did reduce the Corsair count significantly. One thing with Mutalists though, like Hydra Mutalists mid game, is Dewalt's already on double forge. So I think he already has 2 armor, and 2 armor against unupgraded Mutalists actually makes everything a lot beefier here for Protoss.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. This double forge is eventually gonna start scaling Protoss's army. Despite the fact that Dewalt has been kind of struggling in the mid game, I think he'll be able to get back into this. BT kind of wandering around, and you know, Avi-Love is going to find a way into this 3rd base from Dewalt. Only a couple of cannons. Their units not quite in position. The cannons are going to go down really quickly. Nice dodge, actually, from Avi-Love. Does move a couple of Hydras forward, but they do not snipe the Templar. However, the rest of the Hydras, more to the north side, did get rid of the cannons, but did not kill any probes. So I think... Oh my god, the T-drop inside of Avi-Love's main just kills the entire mineral line. And Avi-Love's attack here didn't quite do any damage either, so I think Dewalt slowly grinding his way into an advantageous position here.
Yeah, gonna go and try to pick off that spy, really limit Avi-Love's options here in the mid game. And again, Dewalt is slowly building back that probe count. He does have the 3 nexuses active, and the Spire does go down. And I mean, he's already on 2-2. Soon he's going to be on 3-3, and the Hydralisk mid game really caps out at +2 weapons, and this force still not saturated. I feel like the wall has somehow managed to completely flip the position, and again we're having Avi-Love slightly out of position, trying to defend this fourth base, I should say.
Yeah, that's definitely one main difference I see between, for example, when you watch the pros play this type of style against most of the foreigner zergs, is that the foreigner zergs will just play very defensively with this Hydralisk army and look really strong, but the pros will play really, really aggressively and just take up the whole map, get into contains, and really leverage that strength that you get from your lair-based army. And I think Avi-Love, without doing that, like you mentioned, Sari, this army composition doesn't really scale that well. You need to get into Hive eventually, you need to get into Defilers, and although right now, looking at the supply, it's looking decent for Zerg, in terms of just keeping up with the Protoss, the reality is Protoss is taking up 4th base. There's no Hive on the way. Even the main is mined out for Zerg almost. And it's just getting into the late game here. It looks like Zerg's going to be in a very difficult position.
Yeah, the supplies tell one story, and now we have another storm drop, I think, this time going into Avi-Love's new base. No drones have been transferred. These are just the ones that spawned. But just clipping here, drones, he knows there's no threat of Scourge. Avi-Love actually still has some Mutalisks though that are gonna be able to deal with the shuttle. There's a lot of Hydras. These might surprise the wall. Like, I think Avi-Love is gonna try to go hit that 3rd base from a different angle. Another storm. Look at these Hydras, but they actually get spotted by this one random Pylon, Zella, and Probe, and I think Dewalt should be able to react in time.
Yeah, I just don't see what Avi-Love's plan is here. He's trying to counterattack this base at the top left again. Does kill a lot of these Templar, and actually a lot of these Hydras are still alive. Where is the Protoss supply? Just losing so many units, so many probes as well, taking a lot of damage from these guerrilla Hydralisk attacks, and kind of funneling the units. And okay, finally some nice storms there from Dewalt. Most of his goons engaging the army in a very efficient way, but does lose the Nexus at the top left. Oh my god, look at the supply though. Avi-Love is kind of getting ahead here.
Well, these Hydralisks actually might be trapped though. And again, look at them fire at goons and just not do anything. This is the benefit of the double forge.
Yeah, Dewalt though, I think, is just not taking the fights that he really wants to be taking. Even when he gets these Hydras, first of all, the Hydras definitely traded really well for the Nexus, for a lot of probes, but at the same time, the Hydras trade for units as well before going down, and the Storms aren't quite well placed enough. And just look, even more Hydras here for Avi-Love. Avi-Love has another base fully saturated at the mid left. Of course, Dewalt still has that 3-base configuration, though his main is mined out. His Nat, I think, is close to being mined out. And just again, looking at the supply, we've been talking about this time and again. A Protoss needs to build up to a particular composition or a particular army supply to really start punching through the Zerg. But the theme of this game has just been Avi-Love kind of running circles around the Protoss's army, and Dewalt, he's just playing purely reactionary, right? He's just trying to follow Zerg around left, right, and center, and isn't really putting on any pressure, and it's just coming out behind on all these trades.
Yep, and I mean, I understand Dewalt's strategy here. It's just the sit back and defend Protoss, because you know Zerg isn't scaling well into the late game and you're on 2 forge, but you can't lose Nexuses. That's the one thing. We do have a nice High Templar cannon setup here though. This is not going to go well for Avi-Love, I don't think. Yeah, you can see the storm is just massive, and now they're going up a ramp. They're getting very clumped up.
That was so many Hydralisks, Sari, and the storms were on point for Dewalt, somehow hanging on to that position. I think had Avi-Love kind of in an act of desperation, because I think he senses that he's on the brink of winning the game, and had to kill that Nexus, it would have been over. But that was actually a huge blunder. That was like 2 controlled groups of Hydralisks, maybe 2.5, that just got erased from the map. And now all of a sudden Dewalt has kind of a supply lead still, has another base mining at mid left. It looks like Protoss is going to bounce back in this game possibly.
This one DT actually killed all these drones that were long distance mining. The problem with this style is now you actually need lurkers in your fights too, because the lurker splash actually does a lot more than the Hydrolifts do. They aren't as affected by the armor upgrades, but Avi-Love is really just using the lurker defensively. And again, this has allowed Dewalt to expand when he shouldn't really have been able to expand. He was at a large army deficit for the majority of this game.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see here how this does end up unfolding, because again, I think Dewalt is going to be happy with the current situation, though I think he might want to get another base up and running at some point. Units moving to the left side as well. Avi-Love finally kind of anchoring these two bases at the right and left side of the map with lurkers and sunks and hydras, so those bases are going to be mining for the foreseeable future. But again, no hive in sight, and looking at Dewalt's army, I mean, just so many goons, so many Templars.
And Dewalt, well, this is one of those bases where maps where every base has gas, and Dewalt just gonna have more and more Eye Templars with the energy, and it'll get to a point where just no amount of Hydrolifts will be able to break his army. We're not at that point yet. We still have a supply leak for Avilov, but Avilov is also going to have a tough time to engage. Looks like he's going to go for a counter.
Yeah, again, another counter from Avilov. Just really hedging his bets on this, but actually it's going to be hard for Protoss to break through here, because there is a lot of Sin-City. Ooh, so many cannons and double Templar at mid-left here.
He's not looking. He's looking at the front.
Actually burrow and kill all these cannons. That storm was massive. Another storm as well, just cleaning up. Oh, third storm. The front from Avi-Love isn't holding. The hatchery does go down. It looks like mid-left most likely might go down for Dewalt, but can Avi-Love hold on to his main base? I mean, there's not really much mining here, so it doesn't really matter for him to lose his hatchery, but if it starts snowballing in Protoss's favor, army composition-wise,
there are a lot of lurkers at the fourth base for Avilov, but really when you're in this situation as Zerg, you're getting buses. It's very hectic, hard to unburrow, bring them and burrow. A lot of actions required to do that. And it looks like Avilov's just bringing units popping out of his hatchery, but this is terrible. These are 3/3 goons, and they have high Templar support. Very hard to engage. Looks like the base at top left, if it didn't die, all the probes did, but now Avilov has even lost his Hydrodon. Yeah. No, actually the Hydrodon is at his third. We lost all the hatchery. He's getting his main broken into, and I think this is just gonna snowball, because how does Avilov actually kill this army now?
Yeah, that's a totally good point, Sarian. I think it looked really good for Avilov until he basically ran up a bunch of Hydras up the ramp to the expansion at 1 o'clock, and it just didn't work out. And from there, Dewalt kind of just kept grinding him down. And now, I mean, you know, Avilov still has 2 bases mining, but lost his lair, lost his Hydrodon. Is at less than half of the supply that Dewalt's at, whereas he was basically even with him the entire game. So Avi-Love, despite losing, you know, that 10 o'clock base, he does have the 11 o'clock reestablished, and just, you know, looking to basically close this game out. Does get his units kind of, funnily enough, contained inside of the Zerg's main, but I just don't see Avi-Love dealing with this many Protoss units.
Yeah, now he has a shuttle to deal with. He doesn't have a Spire. And yeah, it all goes back to that moment where Avi-Love attacked into a cannon Templar on the high ground. Because if you think about it, that left side base, not only is it farther from Dewalt's rally, but it's also way more exposed. You don't have to go up a ramp. Way easier to kill. And I know what happened. Avi-Love sensed the win. He was way ahead, and he just needed to kill that base to win, but Dewalt was perfectly prepared for that kind of play.
Yeah, it was definitely a YOLO, like, oh my god, I'm gonna beat Dewalt, I'm gonna make it out of my group in first place, and just a big mistake from Avi-Love, because he was definitely in a winning position now. basically totally helpless this game. He's gonna try and go for some more attacks here at the 10 o'clock, but I think he just doesn't have enough steam. Even if he kills this Nexus, Protoss still mining, has shuttles running around harassing, not that many drones left, and yeah, I mean, Zerg's kind of just holding out hope, but I can't see anything saving him. More storm drops coming in here at bottom left. Ooh, Fat Storm kills off at least like 10 drones there, and yeah, Avi-Love's really up against the ropes now.
Yeah, I think that's actually going to do it. And a bit unfortunate for Avi-Love because he really had Dewalt on the ropes at least a couple times. But one is the map being new to him, I think, because had he had more experience on this map, you, as Zerg, realize if you have your lurkers forward, Protoss actually has to go up a ramp to get out on the map. Yeah. And it can be very obnoxious. And if they try to go through another ramp, you can just counter their natural. And he had some very nice counters this game, but unfortunately, with the way the early game went, like going back to that double forts, the upgrades for Dewalt have always been massive, and just unfortunate attack there at that high ground third base. And there's a GG from Avi-Love.
Yeah, GG gets called from EverQuest user, and that does tie up the series 1-1. So we still have one more game to go here, and it is going to be Avi-Love's pick. But yeah, just so unfortunate. Hopefully he can keep his mental together. I think he was so close to just winning that game. If he had kept those Hydralisks alive and just played a bit more solidly for another minute or two, I think he would have really kind of had Dewalt basically starve. But unfortunately went for that attack at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, or whatever, and it didn't quite work out.
Yeah, really got trigger happy there. And yeah, again, a lot of things could have worked differently for Avi-Love. He had a phenomenal position at various stages of the game, but again, Hydras don't scale all the way into late game when Protoss has double forge, and on top of that, just that one big bad attack. And Dewalt really holding it together because he was really in a bind for a lot of that game, and managed to tie it up. And now we're gonna go into third game.
Yeah, game number 3. Again, Avi-Love's pick here. What do you expect to see? I mean, I'm guessing it's, what are the 4-player maps that are left?
Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta think, does Avi-Love want to do what he did in game 1 again? It worked out for him. Of course, Dewalt didn't scout it until really late, basically, and Dewalt couldn't punish Avi-Love. Avi-Love got away with murder in the early game.
Yeah.
Does Avi-Love want to do that again? Because if he does, then only options are 3- and 4-player maps.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think we still have Monopoly there, which might be kind of a mix-up for sure. You know, does Dewalt have a lot of games played on there? I mean, there's Turbine, but Turbine, I feel like, I mean, what if he picks Turbine, man?
I think Avi-Love, one, you got to factor in time played on each map. That's a big factor, more so than map balance. And then like specific strategy also plays a pretty big factor into it.
Yeah. Well, again, kind of Avi-Love definitely in a strong position here, because I think Dewalt has just seemed so shaky in both of these games that it's a real possibility that Avi-Love can just win against Dewalt. I mean, last game, it wasn't even, you know, the first game you can chop it off, chop it up to, well, Avi-Love basically went for this super abusive style, and it worked out. But game number 2, it was pretty much a kind of a standard game, and Avi-Love was grinding Dewalt down up until that fatal mistake at mid-right. So I think when you're Dewalt in the situation, and you can see Dewalt, okay, actually, yeah, Monopoly is going to be the map here. I think the players are ready, so this is going to be the rubber match. to decide who makes it out of the group in first place. Will it be Avi-Love or will it be Dewalt?
All right, in the top left spawn, we have our blue zerg Avi-Love.
And in the mid right, it is the red Protoss player, Dewalt.
So just thinking ahead, like whoever wins this, of course, advances. Let's say you're Crossy here, and you're watching this match, and Avi-Love might actually beat Dewalt. And then Crossy has to go up against Dewalt to even advance out of his group. It's tough. This is why it's just like one of the tougher groups. Just high level players all around, and Avi-Love, of course, not as active as Crossy or Dewalt, but still has a very high skill level.
Yeah, and I mean, likewise, if you look at this from Dewalt's perspective, I mean, it's extremely scary because, again, we've talked about how at least the Achilles heel of Dewalt early on in the tournaments, in the BSLs, has been this matchup, you know, which is kind of funny because he's actually really good at it. But I think he gets into this headspace where he's trying desperately to play reactionary. I think that's exactly what happened on Butter against Avi-Love. He's just overcompensating, trying to play way too defensively and kind of putting himself behind needlessly. And in this matchup, you really can't afford to do that. So we'll have to see here, because if Dewalt loses to Avi-Love, then he has to play Cross, like you mentioned, and I think that would be scary for either player. Of course, if you're Cross, you don't want to go up against Dewalt to have to get out of this group, but at the same time, if you're Dewalt, you don't want to go up against Cross. Now, Dewalt is going to fake this pylon. Is he actually going to run?
Okay, that was actually pretty bad because he messed up the pylon placement, and he saw that the drone could actually go through, so he had to cancel that right away.
Well, I thought for a second it might have been a fake, but it looks like the Forge did finish for Dewalt early on as well. So this is, again, it's not the best start for Dewalt, right? Because Zerg went for this hatch first, Dewalt went for the Forge expand, but didn't even delay the Forge. So has no compensation here and is just kind of a bit behind economically.
Yeah, he had to make that pylon, or had to cancel that pylon, and that's just a waste of minerals there. And Avi-Love going for the 11 hatch again. And Dewalt's actually going to go cannon before gate here. So something, I mean, it's got to go down to that messed up pylon. Because you're able to get, oh my god, and Avi-Love made drones, not even lings. So I wonder if Dewalt actually made the cannon. Okay, no, he was waiting to see if links popped out of the hatch, and that's a pretty good call.
That's exactly what Dewalt needs in this series here. He needs to start cutting it a bit closer and just making more confident decisions and kind of relying on himself to hold things on the spot instead of, you know, for example, building the cannon first just to make really sure that he doesn't die. Because again, like, just throughout the series, he hasn't really been getting ahead in the build orders, and he's been having to grind back from kind of extremely disadvantageous positions. And I mean, sure, you might be the better player, but especially in this matchup, it can be so unforgiving for Protoss. And I mean, is he really that much better of a player than Avi-Love to kind of handicap himself every single game? So far, despite that pylon kind of mishap early on, this game is not looking too bad for Dewalt. The core is on the way supremely fast here, and he is going to be able to kind of get a Stargate out really early on. Avi-Love does not make a lair.
Whoa, this probe actually gets in.
That's so many drones.
No gas mining. This is actually huge. I don't know how this probe actually got in. Maybe it was...
I think he mineral logged it while he still had a...
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, this is huge. So now he's going to see Avi-Love went only for speed. He's going to transition into gasless mining, so he can get these additional hatcheries up. One's already hit at the end. This could be catastrophic, actually, because one drone already dead.
Yeah.
Avi-Love only reacting now.
Well, Dewalt did a lot of damage in the previous game as well with his Zealot movement, with his early Corsairs, and still had a really hard time, but we'll have to see if this is enough. Will kill... Nope, won't get that second drone. So if you're Protoss, okay, hold that thought actually. Second Zealot coming in. Will he get more drones with this? Nice micro from Avi-Love so far, but does lose a second drone. Will he lose a third drone? No, not quite. Avi-Love playing out of his mind and defending these Zealots. But let's say you're Dewalt, right? You scout that Zerg's not going for lair. Clearly going for this type of 5-hatch, no lair Hydra play. What's your plan here?
You just play normal, but you don't make a lot of Corsairs, maybe 1 to 3 maximum. And I don't like that he's trading away all these Zealots because it's going to really hamper his timing. There's basically not going to be one here. Avi-Love, during that, he actually didn't manage to pull away his Overlord, so that's something the Dewalt's going to be able to pick at. We actually have 6 hatch, and this is really fast 6 hatch. Usually you go 5 hatch and get your Hydralisk upgrades before the 6 hatch, but one Overlord going to go down. We're seeing more Stairs being added, and well, the Hydrogen only now just finished, but Avi-Love's actually supply blocked here.
Avi-Love is supply blocked, but again, I mean, the thing is, everything I'm seeing right now is looking good for Protoss, but this literally happened on butter, Derry, and the Dewalt still has such a hard... These Zealots are actually trapped.
Yeah, they couldn't actually retreat. That's 2 huge pickoffs there for Avi-Love. Means there's just gonna be no Zealot timing. He already threw away 3 and he just lost an additional couple ones, and you're thinking, okay, maybe it was just a trade for Dewalt, but really those Zerglings, once those Zealots get +1, trade way worse than they just did. But the Corsairs are getting a lot of damage here.
Yeah, they are just absolutely killing these Overlords this game. And I mean, Dewalt could not ask for a better position here heading into the mid game. Monopoly, of course, is kind of a weird map because it doesn't flow like most maps. It doesn't really have a center through which you can kind of move your army around like something like Ascension. The center is like a total island map. So it is a bit harder to, for example, attack one base then pivot to the other as Protoss. And so I'm curious to see how Dewalt kind of converts this early game advantage into the mid game, but he does have a hefty supply lead.
Well, that's got to do something with the fact that he killed 5 Overlords with just 2 Corsairs. Now, I was saying there's not going to be a timing here, but when you can kill 5 Overlords, you really slow down Zerg. Zealot should have +1. I did see that Avi-Love was going into double Forge, so he's going to have nice Hydralisk upgrades in about a minute, and he does manage to deflect, but again, loses another Overlord somewhere, just like at the 3rd base. And man, these Corsairs really low HP, but still getting damage done.
Yeah, Corsair is just finding so much efficiency, and Dewalt is really good at using those. This SimCity actually from Avi-Love is not quite working out as well as I think he was hoping it to, because the Zealots do get around and are targeting the Sunken. Oh my god, Zealots all over the place, the natural as well. Avi-Love crumbling apart. This isn't really going to get to play this game out. The Zealots surround the Sunk at the natural and at the 3rd base. Now Zealots in the 3rd base mineral line, also killing so many Hybrids, Corsairs as well, eating these Overlords up. Looks like even the natural Zealots are still alive. Basically, Avi-Love has fallen down to 35 supply, isn't mining out of his natural. His 3rd says disaster called GG, sad face from Dewalt. GG from Dewalt, and that's gonna be it, man. Dewalt advances.
Those Corsairs did so much damage because we saw 5, but he actually killed another before he went to that 3rd, and the Corsairs are still alive. Probably killed another Overlord as well, and Avilov just can never stabilize into that position where you're just making units, because had he kept maybe 2 Overlords alive more, he would have just had enough Hydras to deal with his like his production. He had a lot of production. He just couldn't use it on anything that wasn't Overlords. It's a lot to invest 100. And I mean, just good play by Dewalt, really showing his Corsair control is very nice, and just hitting 2 fronts at once. I thought with the Sunken and the SimCity was enough, but I was wrong. All that floating larva really hurt Avi-Love there.
Yeah, and you know, such a shame because I think Avi-Love was so close from kind of winning that game against Dewalt on Butter and getting out of this group, but now does get knocked down into the last chance match. He is going to be waiting for the winner of Goku versus Cross, which is going to be our next game. But before that,